So if you Google or do a non-traceable search of, there's a global conflict tracker. Now, but in full disclosure, it's Council on Foreign Relations, so all the conspiracy people, all the post 9/11 truther people out there, this is your trigger warning. So it is on the Council on Foreign Relations and all that, whatever that means to you. But for the purposes of what we're doing right now, if you go to that website, there's a map. It's the Global Conflict Tracker map. It'll show dots on a world map. And there are dots in Latin America, there are dots on the African continent, there are dots in Southeast Asia and East Asia. There is one dot in Eastern Europe. There are dots in the Middle East. It's tracking global conflicts. Currently, we are on the brink of entering another Mideast conflict here in the United States. Israel and Iran, they're at war. There is genocide and ethnic cleansing in Gaza. This map does not describe it that way. There is war in Eastern Europe, Russian invasion of Ukraine. There is civil war conflict in Sudan, Ethiopia, Myanmar, other areas. These places don't get a lot of coverage because they are not critical in terms of U.S. interests or effect on the U.S. Because these conflicts or situations are ranked, and those that are most critical, obviously, the ones that are the most critical. There's also U.S. military deployed in the streets of Los Angeles. That's a side issue. We'll talk about later. But the ones that are most critical, and yes, this is a film podcast, the ones that are most critical are Russia, Ukraine, North Korea, the situation in Iran, the conversation between China and Taiwan, and less, if not critical, but considered significant, is the India-Pakistan issue. And why are these critical? These are critical because, yes, you guessed it, atomic weapons. So tonight, we're going to have fun talking about atomic weapons. And we're going to talk about two films from 1964 that represent the end of the world. So these two films are Dr. Strangelove and Failsafe, Kubrick and Sidney Lumet, respectively. Cold War films, 1964, Strangelove, Failsafe, RickRamos. What do you have to say?
For the longest time, Failsafe has been on my list of films to sit down and watch and take in. And I don't know, sometimes, I've said this in the past where I wait so long to see a film that there becomes a certain, I guess, paranoia in the film disappointing. But as I've said in the past, you and I have talked, when you take into account the source material, or the material, in this case, something as heavy as the Cold War and reactions within that time period, 63, 64, shortly after the Cuban Missile Crisis, admittedly, as I look at it, an era and a decade that is fascinating to me. The assassination of John F. Kennedy, the ascension of Lyndon B. Johnson, the civil rights movement, the rise and out of control nature of the Vietnam War, and ultimately Richard M. Nixon. All of that one little piece of it handled with the deft hand of one of my favorite filmmakers, a filmmaker that I believe does not get the respect and the recognition he deserves, Sidney Lumet. You kind of go into something with an attitude where this is going to pay off, and I got to say that was the case. But I also will say this, that much like its reception in 1964, coming out 6 months after, I believe 6 months after Kubrick's Strangelove, which was a huge critical and box office hit. Failsafe has disappeared into obscurity. Most people don't even know the film exists. And I think it's one of the best films of that decade. And this is the first time for me having seen it. I was not disappointed. But watching it, I couldn't watch it without the heavy shadow of Kubrick's film washing over it. I saw it one time last night, and as I watched it, all I could do was go parallel to scenes in Strangelove. It really is kind of a testament to how great Stanley Kubrick and his film is, that it could bury and pretty much wash away any recognition of this small classic. I think Failsafe is an incredible film. And as always, I'm interested in hearing both your analysis of it, the feeling that you got watching it, and to begin that discussion, as always, let me hear your relationship with both of these films, but specifically Failsafe.
I don't have a relationship. I mean, I didn't. I don't know if I do now, but I mean, like,
Did you know that the film existed?
Yeah, I knew that the film existed.
Okay.
I knew that there was this parallel bomb movie, and I hadn't seen it. And it was just one of those, like, Kubrick. It's like Strangelove is one of the ones that it would be in the Kubrick rotation, but it wasn't one of the main ones that, like, 2001 is something that I've seen more of. Full Metal Jacket I've seen more of. Eyes Wide Shut I've seen more of. So it's not, I've seen The Shining I've seen more of. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I've seen Strangelove, like, probably, I've seen it more than 5 times. But I don't know if I've seen it more than 10 times. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas, like, 2001, I have seen more than 10 times. Full Metal Jacket, I have seen more than 10 times. And so that whatever that means. But I watched Strangelove first.
As I did.
And then, but I was watching Failsafe, and I was like, I was way more into Failsafe as just an experience, and I don't know that it was just because it was a new film to me. I just felt I was very, very impressed with how. I mean, it also, we've had escalation in a conflict between Israel and Iran, so there's like that. That was a greater shadow to me than Strangelove on Failsafe, is the fact that that we are potentially now approaching a World War III scenario.
Yeah.
And that that the issue here centers around nuclear weapons, because Israel attacked Iran in order to disable its nuclear capabilities, based on the claim that Iran's nuclear capabilities are an existential threat to the state of Israel. As I said earlier, these critical zones, or critical conflicts or confrontations are all related to the atomic bomb. And the countries right now that have atomic weapons are the United States. Israel has them, but they have them like unofficially. The UK has them.
Known. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I heard someone describe it as, I think it was on NPR, they described it as like the first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. The first rule of Israel's nukes is you don't talk about Israel's nukes, you know?
You and I were listening to the same program. It was a couple of days ago.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So US, Israel, the UK has them, France has them, India has them, Russia, China, North Korea, Pakistan. And the question is, how close or how far away is Iran from being able to enrich the material so they can assemble a bomb? And so, like, that's and then the question is, in this escalation, is Israel going to ultimately, are they after regime change? And depending on what happens, are they going to use or consider? Well, I mean, consider they probably already are, but are they going to use tactical nuclear weapons against Iran? And what does that mean? And how does that draw us into that kept me on the edge of my seat for fucking failsafe. You know what I mean? Are you there?
I'm here.
I'm hearing helicopters, and I may have to Kurt Russell it out of here. So,
yeah, you're in LA, baby. You know.
Fucking Ibrahim Pliskin over and out. I guess that's redundant. Anyway, the film on its own, failsafe on its own, I think is, without all this shit in the background, is fucking is very good. It's as a script, I think it's like a masterwork, because it's so fucking tense, and there's not a lot of like so-called action.
No, it's mostly people standing around talking to each other with this impending doom, based on confusion, and this ultimate. There's kind of a hopelessness in the film from beginning to end. It's a darker film than I think audiences are used to. I think part of the thing that sells Strangelove is that it's a satire, and comedy is easily dismissed. You can look at it and you say, well, you know, you have Peter Sellars playing 3 different parts, and a Nazi at the end who has no control over his body. Not to mention that final great shot of Slim Pickens riding a nuclear bomb onto a target, and all of that shit is dismissive. It's like, okay, we can laugh at ourselves. We can laugh at the ridiculousness of both the arms race and our own probable fate. We can dismiss it because comedy, absurd as it is, and Kubrick's film is very absurd. You could take a step away from it and say, that's comedy, that's laughable. We are smarter than that. We can overcome that kind of a thing. Whereas Lumet's film is brutally honest about both geopolitical relationships, culture wars, the very idea that the Larry Hagman character is listening and translating for Henry Fonda's president, but he's not just translating words. He's translating emotions and tone, and it's not said, but it's there. The possible attitude of the Russian people. Cultural differences. You cannot watch Failsafe and walk away from it with a good feeling, with a feeling of hopefulness. It has one of the most tragic and bleak endings that I've ever seen in a major motion picture. I don't know if we should give it away because of how when we talk about a movie like The Wizard of Oz, it's not giving it away that Dorothy could click her heels at any point in the film and go back home. Everybody has seen the film. Everybody knows the film. Failsafe is different because as old as it is, almost 60 years old, nobody has seen it. If I talk to people, they were like, well, there's a straight version of Strangelove for those people who know Strangelove. I'm starting to find that there's a cultural and cinematic illiteracy that is growing as the years go by.
Oh,
there's for sure. There's less of an understanding and a recognition of what has come before, which I think is a detriment to the species, which is a detriment to the culture as a whole.
And you know what? Sorry, you know what's the Grand Canyon between fucking like our current situation and the fucking past? It's the 90s. Because that's already fucking ancient history. So it's like, to think someone's going to go back beyond the 90s is like, the only thing that I see people wearing like tight shirts and baggy pants, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's a 90s fucking boomerang, but and I'm sorry to cut you off, but I see that as such a chasm between where we are and everything before. And when people talk generationally, they'll say, like, I'm surprised, but they will refer to boomers, to the baby boomer generation. But then, of course, the fucking forgotten Xers, they'll jump right away to be like, well, boomers, and then you have millennials, and then you have Gen Z, and then Alpha, and it's like, hey, wait a minute, motherfucker, like, what about me? You know what I mean? Like, I have keys to the house. I'm walking home from school by myself. I'm a latchkey kid. Well, it's if people don't know shit about fucking speaking up, fucking Crimson Tide.
That was going through my head as I watched this as well. Yeah.
People don't know fucking like Gene Hackman just fucking died not so long ago. Fucking who?
Yeah, because as we've said many times, he outlived his relevance.
Yeah.
A lot of great artists too. You can either die young and leave a beautiful.
Because it's kind of. Huh?
I said you can either die young and leave a beautiful corpse, where they're going to remember you, or you get to the point where you die in your home and people and the paramedics don't realize you're Chuck Berry. That's right. That's just the reality of the world that we live in. There is no embracing of the past. There is no looking at history and saying, how did that factor into us becoming who we are? I'm watching Failsafe, and I'm on the tail. I'm 50 years old. I'm on the tail end of that period where duck and cover.
Right.
It never happened during my lifetime, but I remember my mom and my dad telling me about it. I remember it being talked about in movies.
Mm-hmm.
You talk to somebody now, and they're going to be like, bullshit. Nobody ever did that. Why would they do that? Failsafe, you have to watch it within the context of the time it was in which it was made. And part of the problem with the film is not the film. The problem with the film is the culture in which it's being watched. Today, there's no understanding of that time period. There's no understanding of the Cuban Missile Crisis, of Robert McNamara talking about how close we came to war, much less anybody know who McNamara is. Yeah.
Yelling about it.
Scream, yeah.
Like,
I mean, this is...
fucking DEFCON 2.
Yeah.
Like,
nobody knows what that shit means.
It means that we were minutes away from fucking the destruction of fucking life.
Yeah. Life as we know it. Yeah. I think that's... Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No. I'm interested in what you... I'm more interested right now in that. We're going to be talking over each other a lot in this episode.
Yeah, I know.
This is one of those ones. Yeah.
The U.S. had already used 2 nuclear weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Our audience knows that.
And our audience has a pretty good idea of how we feel about that.
Of course.
Yeah.
But when you get to fucking... when you get to the Cuban Missile Crisis, you get to mutually assured destruction. So it's like, as a refresher course, after World War II, there's tension between the U.S. and the USSR. Major superpowers. First allies during the fight against fascism, against Hitler, etc. Truman's doctrine is to stop the spread of communism. After World War II, this is why the end of Strangelove is like, well, why is that guy a Nazi? Well, Operation Paperclip, Project Paperclip, the fucking Nazi scientists, they go to work for the U.S. There's a race to take, do the Russians get them or do we get them? And now we're going to get into the space race, the arms race, Werner von Braun, fucking Nazi rocket guy, Apollo missions, all of that. So now when you watch Strangelove, or when I watch it, I see him doing that Nazi salute, and I'm thinking, well, fucking Elon Musk. I'm not thinking Werner von Braun. I'm thinking Elon Musk and his rockets. You know what I mean? Like, and his fashion. And from my heart, you know what I mean? Like that's that, because there's a new avatar for that. But okay, going back, it's like Truman's doctrine is we're gonna stop the spread of communism throughout the world. You get the Korean War, you get the Berlin Wall, you get Bay of Pigs invasion in Cuba. Nikita Khrushchev sends missile to Cuba.
First of all, tell them who Nikita Khrushchev is.
He's the leader of the Soviet Union at the time.
Yeah. They don't know that.
There's fucking missiles in Cuba. Cuba is 90 miles away from the United States. Florida. There's a fucking submarine that could have fired. And one of the guys on the submarine didn't. He just did. He refused to do it. Goddamn, all this fucking shit that just could have escalated. Vietnam, and we were like however many minutes away on the Doomsday fucking clock. And so now you have these, if you think about these Cold War terms, think about brinksmanship. Each side pushes the other to the edge, to the brink. You raise the stakes. Like I said earlier, you have the arms race, the space race, a constant escalation in terms of like, well, whoever has the biggest fucking gun wins. And it's like, yeah, it can be seen as like, well, my dick is bigger, motherfucker. Like, you're not gonna fuck with me because I'm bigger, I'm better, I'm whatever. Whoever has the biggest toy fucking wins. Escalation. And in fail safety, there's that mention: the war machine acts faster than our ability to stop it. Mad, mutually assured destruction. It's a lose-lose situation. It's not zero sum. Winner takes all. It's fucking. If one fires, as soon as the one on the receiving end, well, mutually assured destruction. If one gets attacked, the other attacks back, and now we're going to just blow up the world. So the idea is, we're not going to fuck around. It's Reservoir Dogs.
I missed that. What did you say?
It's the Reservoir Dogs scene where they have, what do they call it, a Mexican standoff or whatever, where it's like all those guns are pointed at each.
Yeah, everybody's pointing at everybody.
Chain reaction, yeah. That scene comes from what's the Hong Kong movie?
Inferno.
City on Fire.
Oh, City on Fire. Yeah,
no.
Ringo Lam.
Is it City on Fire?
It's City on Fire. Yeah, okay. It's the Chow Yun. Ringo Lam.
So, you know what I mean? And Eisenhower talked about the military-industrial complex, so the relationship between defense contractors, politicians, and government, the economic incentive of war. That's why Halliburton fucking was raking in so much money. That's why Raytheon and Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and so much of that is like part of California's. California is like the fourth largest economy in the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
To all the haters out there.
Yeah.
Trying to like get my distaste and displeasure of Los Angeles like grows as I grow older and the traffic gets worse and the parking gets worse. Do get a stray.
Wait a minute. Let me
you to call me back?
We're having a little bit of problem with the connection. Let me call you right back. What's this at?
California is the fourth largest economy in the world. I was talking about how I am developing an increasing distaste for LA based on my age and based on the traffic and the parking, etc.
Don't forget the rent.
And don't forget the fucking rent. How can I forget the rent? I have what? How many days now? I have fucking like 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I have 12 days before I pay the rent. That's dumb. And but California is the fourth largest economy in the world.
Yeah.
And part of that is obviously it's tech, it's entertainment, Hollywood, it's agriculture, and it's also defense. So like Raytheon, all of those companies are part of that, and they are part of the military-industrial complex. And this is what keeps war going. This is the machine. This is part of it. And so failsafe touches on all of that, and failsafe itself as a term, it's like a system that's designed to default to the safeguard state. So in case of malfunction or in case of human error, you get redundancy. So it's like in Crimson Tide, you have to authenticate. If you receive a message that orders a strike, you have to authenticate that. It's not just one order. It has to match. You have to have an order that matches it. And there's a certain film out now that has those. I don't want to give it away because it's a current film, but it deals with those issues. It deals with these big global conflict kind of issues. And it deals with a lot of issues that are relevant today. You guys can. I don't know if I say it, if it kills it or what. I might as well just say it. But
yeah, say it. Cause I'm not really sure which one you're talking about.
It's the Mission Impossible film.
Oh, I haven't seen it, so all of that shit blends into itself as far as I'm concerned.
Of course, because it's constantly about that, but it deals very, very closely with a lot of what we're talking about. That's all I'll say about that, but it's super relevant. Also very tense and it's crazy to see, as a side note, Tom Cruise at his age doing the shit that he does. And as unbelievable as some of the stuff becomes in a kind of a John Wick kind of way, it also has a John Wick believability to it, which keeps it tense and interesting. Now going back to this, it's when you compare Strangelove to Failsafe, to me, there's something. Okay, like Strangelove is a black comedy. That's what it is. Failsafe is dead fucking serious.
Yeah.
Strangelove has Peter Sellars, George C. Scott, what's his name? Sterling Hayden, is that his name?
Sterling Hayden, yeah.
He's the cop he's the McCluskey from The Godfather. As a reference for people. Failsafe has primarily it's Henry Fonda and Walter Matthau.
Yeah.
Matthau as a war hawk, Peter Fonda as the president. Strangelove has these absurd leaders. They're crazy. The premise of Strangelove is that you have this tough guy, American cigar chomping general, who decides that war is for soldiers, not fucking, this Pete Hegseth fucking, we're going to have a warrior culture back in the military. War is not for politicians, it's for warriors or whatever. So he's like, in order to stop, these fucking pinko commie scumbags or whatever, he's like, I'm gonna override everything. I'm gonna take over. It's basically a one-man fucking military coup. And we're gonna fucking order the dropping of the atomic bomb. And now it's like, well, what happens when the chain of command in the United States learns of this, and now they have to reach out to the Soviets and try to prevent the dropping of this bomb? How do you do it? Now you have to work with your enemy, and then like, wait, what? Is this a trick? Is this what happens? What do we do? Failsafe is there's some kind of error in the system that gives out this order.
Yeah, the computer itself, as they go on to describe it, the technology is changing so quickly, or the science, the work of the computer itself is advancing so rapidly that man can't keep up with it.
Right.
So mistakes happen, And, you know, I wasn't worried about Strangelove. Strangelove, I looked at it and I was like, because it's a comedy. I mean, I'm as guilty as the general public in being dismissive of it. But Failsafe was so, it was so overwhelmingly real that I didn't feel that there was a false note in it. Which is interesting because I didn't think that there was a false note in Strangelove either. It's just that the delivery of it was designed and calculated for the absurd.
Right.
The whole idea that we would have these weapons and they would be designed to kill one another completely is an absurdity.
Yeah.
Kubrick leans into that, going from a source novel that was not a satire, that was not black comedy, that was more in keeping with what Failsafe was, or Failsafe is. But when I watched Failsafe last night, everything about it rang true for me, from the anguish of Henry Fonda as the president to his relationship with Dan O'Herlihy. And I was kind of wondering if you recognized O'Herlihy.
No, who is that?
Dan O'Herlihy was General Blackie. He was the one that eventually goes on the final mission.
I don't recognize him. At least I don't think I do.
Yeah, you do.
Who is it?
You do. He was the head of the RoboCop corporation.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. 20 years earlier. That's who he was.
Oh, shit.
I'm glad you didn't recognize it during the movie because you would have been
thinking about that.
Yeah, you would have been thinking about it. And the parallels to that.
Yeah, because it's a machine that fucking does what fucking wants and like, yeah.
Yeah, so there's that aspect to it. As much of as a pessimist and cynical bastard that I am, I do want to believe that there would be a general that would have the misgivings that he has, that would be able to look at the situation and say, we need to be realistic and look at this from a human level.
Right.
10 million lost lives is unacceptable. 3 million lost lives are unacceptable. Us engaging and instigating this kind of a war, even from in an accidental aspect, is unacceptable. And then you have Walter Matthau, who is based on two political scientists of that time, but for me, just reminded me of Kissinger. Because I'm drawing the parallel between him and the Peter Sellars character in Strangelove, which I always felt was Kissinger. But that level of distance from human life, and I'll say this right now, Matthau's character is correct. It's the best bad choice. As far as the agenda that is being pushed, there are nothing but bad choices in this film. Matthau's character, for the wrong reasons, is pushing for the victory of the U.S., regardless of whether or not the U.S. has instigated this mishap.
Right.
It's an ugly, ugly film in that respect because it is so openly honest about the selfishness and the need for protecting power, maintaining the role of the United States as a world leader. In the film, Mathau does calculations. It is his job to look at the possibilities, and some might argue the inevitability of this type of situation. And doing so is almost like an insurance assessor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, people are going to be lost. How do we minimize that? And that moment of, if we lose these corporations, we must do what we have to do in order to save the data of the financial institutions. I mean, it was such a fucking frustrating and horrible element of how this shit would really play out.
Yeah, I mean, that aspect, sorry.
No,
go ahead.
Please.
Well, that aspect, I know you don't want to give away the ending, but...
maybe we should. Maybe we have to. I don't know. At this point,
I
we've given them a lot of episode. Yeah. Stop listening now. Watch the fucking movie, and then you'll know what we're talking about. Go ahead.
Or just listen to the fucking episode, give us money, and then watch it. Because we have to preserve the financial institutions. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
There's this idea in failsafe that there's a bomber headed to its target, which is Moscow, and they are unable to reach out to it. If they reach out to it, the pilot isn't going to trust whatever message, because at this point he thinks that it's a Russian trick to get them to stop. But now they're on this fucking mission and they're dead set on fucking dropping this bomb. And because that's the fucking mission. That's the order. And so now the U.S. is in contact with the Soviets, trying to give them the location of the bomber, etc., the systems, all this stuff, so they can shoot it down, so that Moscow doesn't get bombed, and so that Moscow doesn't then also retaliate. So then there has to be at some point the reckoning of indicator bomb. So you have to, at this point, as a sign of good faith, as the president, you arrive at this conclusion. You say, well, we don't want the Soviets to retaliate. It's better if we can control whatever outcomes can happen at this point in a situation that is, for the most part, out of control. So, as an act of good faith, we will sacrifice. You stand down. We're trying to help you stop this plane. We're trying to help you stop our bomb from reaching you. If you cannot stop the bomb, please do not retaliate. You have my word that we will also feel pain and we'll put skin in the game, and we will sacrifice one of our own cities that we ourselves will bomb. So long as you do not bomb us back. So in the event of an accidental bombing of an enemy city, we will sacrifice one of our own. In this case, New York. Because it can't be fucking, it can't be like,
it can't be Dubuque.
It can't be Dubuque, exactly. It has to hurt.
Yeah.
And so the decision is made that you have to bomb. It's going to be New York. And so that's the fucking decision. And I see, truth, not fact, but I mean like in the philosophical sense, truth, capital T, as somewhere between these two films. Because as crazy as fucking Strangelove is, I kind of feel like, to a certain degree, Failsafe is more idealized, because I feel like there's only one person who fucking loses it in Failsafe. Everyone else kind of keeps it together really well. We have this president who's very honorable and very sober and very someone who seems like a great leader, etc. Reality, I don't think so. I think he would be more ineffectual the way he is in Strangelove. And that's on the positive side. On the negative side, our president is currently more like the fucking psychotic general that fucking that takes over.
Yeah. Or at least attempts to take over.
Right. And in the end, if the truth is somewhere in between these two films, well, they both end in the same way, which is the atomic bomb is dropped. Fucking spoiler alert on that. If we have that ending here, then you don't have to worry about watching that movie, because there will be nothing left to watch, and there won't be any of you left to watch it. So there's that. The ethics, the pressure, the calculation, the strategy, the sobriety involved in Failsafe is completely missing from Strangelove. And at this point, when I look at these films, I'm like, well, all of the people, if you had a real world scenario where you had a pretend real world scenario where you had it was a mixture of the characters from Failsafe and a character from Strangelove. Now, the characters from Failsafe would have either resigned or been fired by now, and all that would be left are the characters in Strangelove in our current situation. And it's like, of course. And Slim Pickens would be wearing a MAGA hat, fucking riding that bomb instead of a cowboy hat. And how American is that? That you have this cowboy character, who is like this cowboy kamikaze, basically. In a weird way, it's like a cowboy 9/11 fucking pilot. He's not using a plane, but he's riding the bomb. And he rides it like a bull, like a rodeo rider. And he's like waving his hat as he's fucking falling down onto the fucking. Obviously, like that's, unless you're Tom Cruise, you can't fucking just hang on to the fucking rocket as it falls. But there's that. Like, that is, to me, one of the most American fucking cinematic moments. And it's fucking, like, it's disgusting, but it's iconic. And it's terrifying, but it's iconic. And worse to me than even that is in Strangelove. When it's like, okay, well, they're going to get bombed. What now? And then this is when that Werner von Braun fucking character comes, Dr. Strangelove comes to the forefront. And he's like, well, now we're dealing with the after effects when we get bombed in retaliation. What happens? Well, we have to go down and we have to have these bunkers. And they don't get into, obviously, the logistics of how do you create this infrastructure such a short amount of time. Like, whatever. That's to the side. The idea is like, well, this is what we need to do. And
no, excuse me. The point is, because you're right. If you're reasonable, you think, well, how are they going to build all this shit? This take years of preparation. That's not the point. The point that Kubrick is making is the selfishness and the privilege.
Yes.
In a decades before white privilege would become a buzz term, the privilege that the elite would have in reestablishing themselves and maintaining the hierarchy. There's a level of misogyny there because, of course, not even a level. There's straight up misogyny because women, there would be 6 women to 10 women to every man, and these women would be picked for their sexual attractiveness.
Right. Not only misogyny, that's eugenics.
Yeah. You imagine that there would be elements of how many of the darkies are we going to keep for
work,
for service roles? Yes,
So yes, exactly. At that point, it's like you still have basically a Fertile Crescent type of like model in terms of like civilization, where it's like, well, we have a pyramid, and we have a skyscraper, we have a tower where the penthouse, the fucking top of the pyramid, like that symbolizes the fucking except for like prison towers, it's like the top is the fucking like the elite.
Mm-hmm.
This is like if you invert it and it becomes more like an X fucking colony. The deepest core part is that's the inner sanctum. That's where that's the center of these bunkers in the mines. And yeah, exactly. Who would be the ones that are allowed to go closest to the surface for work?
Absolutely.
And the computer decides. They're talking about the computer decides who goes down, who is worthy. And Dr. Strangelove very much is like, he's like, oh, like, I have all this figured out. And he has his arm wants to do the Nazi salute, and he has to fight it. And it's like, the fascism is like struggling to reveal itself. Constantly tries to prevent it. And they're like, yeah, exactly. Fucking the gum chewing fucking George C. Scott was like, oh yeah, I think this is a good idea. In order to propagate the fucking American race, we have to 10 women per man. They all have to be attractive, young. Loves it.
And of course, they learn nothing from the destruction of the world that has happened just a few minutes earlier, because now it becomes an underground, a race for underground technology.
That plus it's like in an accelerationist type of fucking fantasy, things get better after the world is destroyed because it's better for them, because now they live in a society that they go from the George C. Scott character has one mistress at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's going to go from 1 to 10. And he's going to be one of the top elites in the world. Because that's the extent of the world now, is that bunker. It kind of becomes this. It's a version. It reminds me of the And there's a documentary based on a book. It's called Chaos. This is a kind of a sidetrack, but it's a parallel. And Errol Morris did a documentary on Netflix about it.
Oh, that's interesting.
He talks to, I think the author's name is Tom O'Neill, I think his name is, and it's about Manson, and it's about Charles Manson and COINTELPRO, not COINTELPRO, MK Ultra, about mind control and drugs. And what this researcher did, and yes, this is a weird fucking side quest, but just bear with me. He did all this research into Charles Manson in the Bay Area, going to this clinic, and he kept breaking his parole, but he wouldn't get arrested for it. And he's like, "There's more to this story than meets the eye." He's like, He basically gathered all this shit, and he never comes to a conclusion because he admits, like, I hit a bunch of dead ends, but here are more questions that I was able to, like, come up with based on all my information. And he feels that the Bugliosi theory of Helter Skelter that's not the extent of the actual story. So why do I bring this up? Part of the Helter Skelter theory is that in this apocalyptic vision that Manson had, supposedly, and I kind of tend to believe it because I don't think that Bugliosi was creative enough to come up with himself. I think that Manson was wacky enough to actually listen to the Beatles and be like, "Hey, this makes sense in my whacked out head." So the theory is that there would be a race war. The murders would instigate this race war. The war would be pinned on the blacks, so that it would start this because of the Black Panthers, because Manson thought he had killed one, blah, blah. They go down into the bottomless pit in the middle of the desert. So that would be basically, for all intents and purposes, their bunker. And they would have all of these, they'd have all these chicks that are part of his family or whatever. And then at the end, when the blacks won the race war, they would emerge from the bottomless pit, and these African Americans, according to Manson's racist beliefs, would be incapable of running things. He run shit.
Yeah.
So Dr. Strangelove, it reminds me of that in the sense that we're talking about it, because it becomes Dr. Strangelove fucking his Helter Skelter. And taken from the Beatles lyrics, when I get to the bottom, I go back to the top of the slide. So in other words, like, you have to go all the way down so that eventually you can come up to the top of the hierarchy. Helter Skelter. And that's exactly what's happening at the end of Strangelove. They're discussing who's going to go down into the fucking deep miles beneath the surface of the earth to preserve their version of civilization and redefine. And as I said, if you think about it in that scenario, and you have the means, and you have the technology, that's a better situation if you're looking for power, absolute power. Like, why not? Why not do? I mean, like, Albert Einstein has that quote. He doesn't know how World War III will be fought, but he knows that World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones.
Mm-hmm.
So this is that scenario, that World War III scenario, and now it's like, well, we've got the fucking biggest sticks, and we got the bitches in the fucking hole down there. You know, that's that attitude. And the reality is that seems more realistic than fucking failsafe.
That's one aspect of Strangelove, though. Failsafe doesn't go that far. You don't see
Right.
the meetings
Mathau,
after. Mathau alludes to it.
Doesn't get to make that point yet.
Yeah.
Which he probably would.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's going to be damage control. And in any major catastrophe or natural disaster or man-made disaster, someone stands to benefit.
Yeah, there's that. I don't know who said it. There's that line of like not letting a good disaster go to waste.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, these are both very pessimistic movies. But I think the thing about Failsafe that really draws you in is that where Strangelove, everybody is comical and everybody is ridiculous. There's no faith in either the government, the military, or the little bit that we know about the Russians. Henry Fonda in this film is probably a flawed character, as he would need to be in order to make it true and realistic. But the fact that he is human in that moment, where he understands that now he has just murdered 3 million people. 3 million innocent people as a matter of committing mutual destruction, as a means of sacrifice. I want to believe that would be the choice that would have to be made, and whoever made it would suffer in doing so. And part of the thing that makes me believe that it is true, I go back to the fog of war. Because whatever you want to say about McNamara and the people in the 60s and the 70s who hated him for his role in the Kennedy and Johnson administrations and the both the promotion and the lengthening of the Vietnam War. He seems to be a man who's talking with great regret, who is disgusted by a certain aspect of the choices that he made, but by the choices that he was forced to make. I see that in the Fonda character. I see that in the O'Herlihy character. But also, you don't see that in the Mathau character because it's numbers and it's personal safety, which you and I know that those guys exist.
Oh, of course. They run shit.
I mean, they're probably more prevalent than the others, but
there's versions of that at every fucking office and every workplace around.
But I have to believe for to continue going, to believe that the species has something that is redeeming within it, I have to believe that Henry Fonda would exist. And that O'Herlihy would exist. I have to. I know it sounds naive, but I think it's a matter of self-preservation. I think you have to convince yourself and hope. And there are times when I believe that regardless of who I am in this world and the good and bad that I have done in this world, I honestly believe that I'm a good man.
Right.
And I have to believe that exists out there.
And hopefully, hopefully what?
And hopefully it exists within our government. Right now it doesn't seem to appear that way.
Right. I mean, at this point, it's like, do they exist in the military? Because that's the only barrier that we have before we slip into complete autocracy.
Yeah.
And that sounds, I think that sounds, to some people that sounds like an exaggeration. It's hyperbolic. And it's like, motherfucker, look around you.
Yeah.
And right now, if you think it's hyperbolic, it's because it's not affecting you directly, or if it is, you don't even see it. But everything is network. It's about network effects. And we are all fucking interconnected, whether we like it or not. You're not in a traffic jam just because you're in a fucking traffic jam. You're in a traffic jam because some asshole spilled his coffee, like, however many cars in front of you, or his daughter was like, "Hey, Dad, can you come pick me up? I need a ride after all." Oh, fuck. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like, shit's gonna happen to all of us today that is completely beyond our control because something happened to someone else that was completely beyond their control, and so on and so on. So, like, this shit is real. The scenario today where if there had to be a Vindicator bomb, most likely, would it be New York? No. Would it be Chicago? No. Would it be LA? No. Fuck no, it's not going to be LA. The reason is not because LA is so great, it's just money. It would probably be fucking Detroit. And
I don't know. Boston, Phoenix, Detroit. I think
Detroit's
any
been
other
getting shit on for so long. It would be a black urban area that's large enough to be like, hey, well, we sacrificed something, but it's not going to be New York the way it is in this film. It would be something. Yes, it would be a sacrifice, but it would still be more symbolic than anything, and someone else who's not part of that upper fucking echelon that has investment in those cities, they wouldn't be affected by that. I asked ChatGPT to game out a World War III scenario based on Iran. Israel strikes on Iran. And yeah, it could escalate. Obviously, it could go into a regional conflict. Ultimately, Russia's going to support indirectly. It's going to support Iran. There's going to be oil crisis. If it gets to the point where this is just according to this hypothetical gaming of it, if it gets to the point where Iran races to develop a bomb, there are a number of potentialities. There's Israel could use a tactical nuclear strike against Iran, but that means that right now we have a nuclear taboo. Whoever uses it first has broken the taboo. The 4-minute mile. Once you can run a 4-minute mile, other motherfuckers start running. India, Pakistan. There have been whispers that Pakistan's like, I'll fucking bomb. You fucking bomb, I'm gonna bomb. Let's say there's a regime collapse in Iran. Now you have another fucking power vacuum in the Middle East. Let's say Iran declares itself nuclear. Well, Saudi's going to be like, well, now we need one.
Yeah.
And you're going to have nuclear proliferation. Let's say Iran declares itself nuclear, but everyone's like, okay, fucking stop. Everyone fucking stop. You still have now nuclear proliferation because it's like, well, yeah, let's stop, but I need one too. So even in containment and deterrence, now you have a cold peace. It's fucking ugly. And it doesn't look like we're as a global village, so to speak, we're not pulling away. And this is like on a world level when it comes to nuclear weapons, but there's also fucking civil wars and genocides, as I mentioned at the top, happening. And that's a separate fucking whole issue. Not to mention fucking the rise and spread of fucking authoritarian and fascist governments all over the fucking world, including what's happening here. Like, this is fucking depressing. And we laugh and we this and that.
Sometimes you have to laugh.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't fucking just break down. Because, I am afraid.
First time in my life I can agree that I am as well.
Like on a level, on a deeper fucking level than this is not, oh, am I gonna get fucking robbed or something like, is my car gonna, when I get to the parking lot, is my car gonna be there? Because I've had that where I've gotten to the parking lot and my car is not there. Or is there gonna be an earthquake? Or when is the day that I call my mom and she doesn't answer because she's dead? These are all things that we all deal with, all these crazy fears all the time. That they're down below. They're in their own bunker with their own hierarchy. But this is like next level that I haven't really experienced in whatever issues that were happening throughout the course of my life. It's like I wasn't at that same maturity level that I'm at now. So it's like whatever my interpretation of 9/11 was, and I can go into those things, but this is now, and this is today, and this is fucking, now we're talking about atomic weapons. And now we're talking about autocracy. And now we're talking about the vendetta level shit here. Beyond fucking when people were protesting George W. Bush, post 9/11, the Iraq War, all of that, all of the New World Order conspiracy shit, that those people are now not fucking against what's happening now because it suits their fucking ideological shit or their racialism or whatever it is. We are in the days of fucking Strangelove, not fucking so many decades ago, but like now.
I think on a level, this is inevitable. Proliferation of nuclear weapons, proliferation of any weapon. Somebody is going to be crazy enough to want to use them. And we've always heard the crazy, the racist and cultural attitude. Well, once the Arabs have it, once the Muslims have it, they want to die anyway. You got that. You got fundamentalist Christians in the United States. You got people who are just angry. But when you give them the power to destroy, the chance of that destruction being complete is very high. I mean, I remember reading some really scary story that when they started dismantling the arms race, there's something like 7 or 8 nuclear weapons out there unaccounted for. A fucking nuclear bomb doesn't disappear. I don't know how you feel about that. But that scares the shit out of me. And as I was growing up, I always imagined that this was 30, 40, 50 years into the future. And what I'm realizing is that we're in the future now.
Yeah, we're in it. I studied religion, and so I'm curious.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to start seeing, the closer we get to this, are we going to start seeing and hearing more about UFO phenomenon, or UAP now, what they call it? Not because people are seeing weird shit in the sky, but because you've heard that theory that, and I'm not saying that it's going to be widespread. I'm just curious.
Mm-hmm.
You've heard of this idea that you see UFOs around military installations, and the idea that they are going to like somehow disarm these silos or these like launching sites or whatever.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's like a friend of mine was kind of like touched on the idea of like certain types of spirituality emerging. He just briefly touched on it in the middle of a deeper conversation that he and I were having like a month ago or whatever, but kind of like in these types of situations, it reminded me kind of like a Star Wars scenario where you have this, I described it in one of our episodes as you had in Catholic Latin America during civil wars, a liberation theology. Like, are we going to start seeing more emanations of that? And I'm not saying widespread. I'm not necessarily, but are you going to hear whispers of that? Because it's kind of like, it reminds me at the end of towards the end of the 90s, we had all this weird shit and people were like starting to think about the end of the world potentially.
Yeah.
But they were thinking about the end of the world, but it wasn't just the end of the world because of the systems the dial was gonna shift to fucking 00 because of Y2K. It was also the end of the world, but the Virgin Mary's in my loaf of bread and Nostradamus and fucking the prophecies of this and prophecies, and it was always mixed with like the apocalypse it means unveiling, revelation. That's what apocalypse means. And so I wonder, like, are things as they get weirder technologically and weirder militarily? I think this is something that kind of like Terrence McKenna also was into the LSD thing. Like, are things as they get weirder and weirder? And I think he said something along those lines. Are we going to start experiencing things that are weirder and weirder? And I mean, I wouldn't fucking be surprised.
No.
I'm not saying obviously that any of this shit is real. I'm just saying that shit is getting weirder and weirder, and I think it's not only going to get scarier, but I think it's going to get more. I mean, as ChatGPT so-called hallucinates, or whatever these AIs, when they have those glitches, it's like, so will we, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's not just this thing where you have this psychotic break, as in there's one character in Failsafe who does it, and then there are versions of that happen in Strangelove. I think it's just, there's a difference between mental illness and madness. You know what I mean?
Like, oh yeah, absolutely.
There's a difference. And we're dealing with madness. Insanity is a legal term. But we're dealing with, beyond that, we're dealing with madness.
Madness is what we've done to ourselves. Insanity is a chemical imbalance or a problem in the wiring. But madness is what we've done to ourselves. It's what the job does to us. It's the mob mentality. It's the hopelessness of being sold the American dream without any way of actually fulfilling it. And it's the attitude that we're not working hard enough because they continue to tell us the dream is still a reality. If you can't realize it, then you have to wonder, how has the system changed? That's the madness as I take it. Where you're told that you're the problem. And you're conned into believing that your oppressors are taking care of you. For me, that's the madness. And in some ways, there's a madness in being aware of it when nobody else either is aware or cares.
Right. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's all good. Love it or leave it, baby. Right? If you don't love America, you can get the fuck out, right?
I think America got the fuck out already on its own.
Oh, well.
I think we voted it out. Either that or we voted it in because it's always been here.
Depends on what you're looking at it from.
BuyMeACoffee.com / WatchRickRamos. BuyMeACoffee.com / WatchRickRamos. This episode goes to someone, but it also goes to everyone because this episode affects everyone. Obviously, this is more than fucking cash and coffee. This is real. So, for whatever it's worth, stay safe. Stay safe. See you next time.